What is the AX100? I'm going to give just a quick note on this as Heather and Larry are getting up here. The AX100 is literally a group of 100 people. Shocking, I know, that the name was so unique that people wouldn't know that it was 100 people. But yes, it is 100 individuals that we at Constellation stalk gently online. Okay, it's just the reality. You know this. We just stalk you throughout the year. We see what you're doing. Here's my jerk move again. All I need is this chair and I'll be perfectly happy. And the reason why we do this is we want to call attention to people from very different organizations, from very different backgrounds, from very different paths, who are all thinking, doing, achieving, accomplishing things in experience just a little bit differently. To answer the question, we literally just stalk you online. So some people will ask, like, how did you find me? I just stalk you online. Or like some people had the temerity of going to a dinner in my last lifetime. I ran an organization called the CMO Council, and so some people in the Seattle area just came to dinner one day like 10 years ago, and I haven't let you go since. And now you're on the AX100. So it happened like that. It's fine. But this is our way of honoring people who are thinking differently, doing differently, and really achieving things. And this is an opportunity to get to know one of those honorees. Take it away, guys.
Thanks.
All right. So this will be interesting because I assume we're going to kick it really human.
Yes,
when we talk about experience.
Yeah, we are healthcare is very low tech. So.
Well, yeah, but it kind of matters more.
Yeah.
So I guess for starters, introduce yourself and
Sure.
tell me what Accent Care does.
Absolutely. So I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Communications and Marketing Officer for Accent Care. Accent Care is one of the country's largest post-acute healthcare providers. So for the uninitiated, post-acute healthcare is if you're post-op and you had knee surgery and you need a nurse or physical therapist to come to your home and take care of you post-op, we come there. Most of our clients, patients are elderly. We have what was called the full care continuum, from personal care to clinicians, which are again nurses, physical therapists, to hospice. So again, we are B2B, like a drug company or anything in the medical space. You generally can't just call us up and show up at your door. You have to go through insurance or Medicare, and so we are largely B2B. However, my role has both I would say the CX and the EX experience, because while our end client, as it were, are physicians, healthcare systems, things like that, you do have to make sure the experience is good for the patients and the families, because they are a sort of secondary referral source. Also, our employees. If any of you paid attention during COVID, recruiting in the healthcare space is so difficult. It's been difficult anyways. We all have heard about nursing shortages. COVID made it 1,000 times worse because so many people left this space. So we're all in just a talent race. And a big piece of my job is actually helping our HR and our talent acquisition team with marketing, recruiting, and then the experience once they get in the door.
So if I read correctly, your role didn't exist at the company up until the new CEO came on about a year ago, right?
Correct. They had someone who did a similar role, but when the new CEO joined about a year and a half ago, marketing communications was critically important to her, and she knew the value of it, so she elevated the role, and I came in a year ago. So
okay.
Yeah.
So what's the role of narratives in experience? Because you were kind of brought on, and I think your bio specifically said you were brought on to give the narrative of the clinicians as well as the frontline folks as well as whatever. How does that play into experience?
So I'm an externalist, so storytelling is in my DNA. As a healthcare company, especially on the provider side, we have these amazing stories, and most of our patients we are dealing with generally older, and as most people do want to age in place, and so I think there's that trend. But also, we have hospice, and that is end of life, and so we have the people who work in hospice are really our angels, because that's a special field. But we have these amazing stories, just in the everyday work that our clinicians do out in the field, because they're dealing with patients at the most vulnerable. They've come out of surgery, they may be end of life, things like that. And so it was not being told. So when you looked at us or heard about us, you got a very cold, I would call like investor relations type feel. And if you look at our competitors, it's the same way. No one was really breaking through and telling a story. And when I was approached for the job, and I had a personal connection that my father had home health, I saw that missing. And that's really been the game changer for us. Is everything we do, we start our meetings with a patient story internally. We make sure that when our executives are out speaking, when they're visiting branches, we're almost everywhere across the United States, they have patient stories, because we want to remind people, like, this is why we're doing this. This is like, we're here for the patients, but also that's the core to everything. Our marketing, we're redoing our marketing right now to infuse it with stories. Now, for HIPAA reasons, it has to be anonymized.
Right.
But it's the core, because we are, I mean, I live in Los Angeles, and I'm sure you all know, we had a little bit of a fire. We had to say the least, little fire. And we have a large operation in Southern California. And we had these amazing stories of one of our physical therapists knew that one of her patients lived in the Palisades and was having trouble reaching him, and went out of her way, and she couldn't get in there because they were starting to block the roads access there. But she made sure that she reached the family and got him out, and the daughter was able to get her father out of his home and escape to safety. But we have a million of those stories of when there's a hurricane, things like that. So probably a long-winded way of answering, but it's, again, perhaps being a former reporter, that's where I've called some of these nurses, because they're we do interviews with them, because it really does infuse everything we do internally and externally from how we communicate and market the company.
So how do you think about the digital part of this? I mean, you heard the last panel, right? It was all very digital. This sounds very analog in that it's human connection. I guess, how do you think about that tech?
Yeah, and healthcare is probably the slowest adopter to technology. We're heavily regulated, and that does put some roadblocks into how quickly we can adopt things. However, my company has been, I think you actually may have been speaking about the transformation. That's something we're very focused on as a company, both from our operations on how can we be more nimble on just operationally from when someone is referred to us and making sure it doesn't get stuck in some EMR system somewhere, to the sales enablement, to technology. So our safe ways of using AI, because we do have healthcare data and we have to be careful about that. But digital is a huge part of it. We still live in a industry where paper brochures are still a thing. It makes me cry that that's just what I am stuck with. But we do have to have those, because when people go to their doctor, and again, a large part of our patient base are elderly. So, my mom is 83 and she doesn't want a brochure. She's fine on her iPad, but not everyone is my mom. And so we have to really make sure we cover that. However, digital is something where when I came on, I was like, okay, I get we have to have some brochures. I said, but there is a big part of the population we're not dealing with. They were very stuck in a 1980s viewpoint. I was like, no, the people don't exist anymore. I'm like, the people that are elderly nowadays are like my mom. They actually understand how to use the internet and like it. And so we've made, our marketing has become more digital. We're looking for ways that we can do hybrids. Hybrids meaning paper, old-fashioned, and a digital format, because our salespeople who are out there talking to doctors, they're on iPads, they're on their phones. When they're talking about our services, they need to be able to show it in a dynamic way. So we're trying to help them do that in a digital way. On a back-end side, safe uses of AI. I sit in marketing and comms, so there's a lot of, I think the prior speaker was talking about this. There's a lot of things we try to do from a intelligence on where are we showing up, where our competitors showing up, how we triangulate that using technology. I revamped our marketing comms tech stack, as it were, just because we had very outdated systems. So digital, and we use digital, we have technology that allows us to, again, meets all federal requirements, that allows us to target, or it identifies, and it's scrubbed of any personal identifying information. Patients over 65 who have recently had knee surgery in the Seattle area. And we can cross-purpose that with doctors and health systems, things like that, for targeting of sales. It also helps us with recruiting because we can find nurses in a certain area for recruiting. So we do use technology. Yes, we are very human. At the end of the day, our salespeople go into offices. It's the old-fashioned. They're like, similar, I suppose, to a drug rep. They have pens with accent carrier logos on them.
And they bring you lunch.
And there's rules on what they're allowed to do. But yes, it's still very sort of old ways. But we're trying to find ways to amplify with digital because that's the world we're living in. So.
When do you think it'll become mostly digital? I mean, obviously it's an aging base, and project 20 years out, it'll probably be more digital-ish.
I think it will. I think as we evolve, it will become more digital because the brochures will go away. They're not what people want. So I think it will. I think we'll start to see more and more adoption of it. I think we still have clunkiness on the back end with the way EMRs don't talk to each other well. So if one hospital system is on one and we're on this, there's still glitches. I mean, that's not unique to healthcare. I think any industry is like, well, they're on one. So Microsoft and Google don't talk. So I think that needs to get better. We are in healthcare. There's a monopoly to some degree on who services these things, and I think we've been trying to work with our partners to help them get better. I think it is going that way. I think a lot of it is the back end. It's a very, they've gotten away, probably banking, if anyone's from the financial sector is similar, they've gotten away with 1990 systems for so long. And now they're with AI, I think the pressure is like, okay, let's join the 21st century, can we? So it'll come, it might take 20 years. I hope not. I hope we work quicker than that.
How do you view CX versus employee experience? I guess, where's that middle of the Venn diagram, and sort of how do you bucket the two?
It's very interconnected because, again, we're people-centric. And if you are a clinician, you want to work someplace that is known for top quality care, that cares about its patients. That's why you go into nursing or you become a doctor. And so you want to send your patients somewhere that they'll be well cared for. Also, you want to work for a place that cares. So for us, it's very connected. And I think the best PR for us is a lot of our patients, I mean, I've done it myself, when their family member needs the type of care we provide, will seek us out. We'll make sure that their mom or dad or their cousin gets accent care for post-op. But it is very connected because, as I said, from the patient-client perspective, that is B2B because we're really marketing to physicians, major health systems. On the employee side, that is much more B2C, where how we show up, it's all the traditional, D2C things, social media, all that good stuff. But the employee experience, I think, mirrors the customer experience for us. And so I own all of that. So in my department, I have all of communications, which is internal, external, social media, marketing, creative, and digital analytics. Digital analytics as it refers to like marketing and sales. And we partner closely with our HR and recruiting because it is so important. It's funny, someone at the beginning talked about the culture being like slapping a sign on the wall. I've tried to educate people that we got it a little better than that. That's not why people come to work here. And making sure but being a good partner with HR on those things and finding out how, I've done a lot of focus groups out in the field with our people to find out what they need, how they want to be communicated with. We have, our nurses and clinicians are not in an office. they are out seeing patients. So how do you make sure that the experience for them, that they feel a part of us, they feel connected, because they're not. They're out in their car seeing patients all day. Maybe they see the employee newsletter, maybe they don't. So finding the way, that's where technology comes in. How can we connect them in ways that make them feel close to us, and get them the information they need? And it's largely technology, because how else are we getting them? We give them iPads and phones, and while when they're with a patient, they're charting and things like that. They can also, after hours, get it. So it's extremely connected for us. And the way, but it's all again, I think it comes down to quality, excellence, and if you're doing both on each ends, that helps us grow, which is, somebody else said, that's our key purpose for being here. So,
how important is it to have buy-in from your CEO?
it's very important, and she is, it's a big reason why I was brought in on that employee experience part. She understood, and she had worked for hospital systems for a long time, understood that if your frontline workers are happy, are doing good work, that affects the patient. That will get you more referrals, and you will grow that way. And also, we're kind of a volume business. If we can't grow unless we have clinicians to service those patients. So the only way we grow patient-wise is because we have a really good reputation in the industry, so we don't have that problem. Our problem is capacity, because if we only have 10 nurses in one branch, but our patients keep growing, we just can't take them on, because we just wouldn't be doing good care. So from a pure business perspective, if you take out the human piece of it, that's the only way we grow as humans. And AI cannot take care of you, like not yet at least. You probably don't want a robot changing your bandage after surgery. One day we'll get there, but for now, we've got humans doing it. So healthcare is probably the last bastion that technology can't really get rid of yet fully. Thank God, at least not in my lifetime. But it's very important. It was, I think, she talks about all the time is the employee experience, because again, it leads to the growth for us, but it's critical. And she also, I'm very lucky, she values communications and marketing. I have a seat at the table. You can't say that for some companies. We have gotten better about, we're working on a lot of, again, operational sales and ML, where we're all connected. So those of us on the senior team make sure that we're looped in, so you don't have the sales team going off by themselves and marketing sitting over here. We're all very knitted together, because it's a mandate from above that we all have to work together to solve these problems and for our patients and for the company.
Just out of curiosity, do any of the CX people in this room report to their CEO? Or you're in healthcare over there. What industry are you in? Retail. Retail, okay. Anyone else? Sales? Experienced people report to sales folks? All right, who do you report to, just out of curiosity? Ops?
In contact center,
information technology. We're kind of the stepchild that got assigned a home because we didn't have one.
Okay.
But the long-term goal is actually to restructure the organization to choose the CEO.
Okay. Yeah, it's just interesting, because back in the day, it used to be a CIO wouldn't report to a CEO, or there were like layers removed, and that kind of transformed things when they kind of had a direct line. So yeah, it's just interesting you actually report to a CEO.
Yeah, and it's, I do, and we have a SLT, senior leadership team, where we meet in person twice a year. We just had our offsite a few weeks ago, and we have monthly like Zoom calls that we do, or Teams calls. And that's a new thing. The reporting structure, she changed that as well, and that more people to have it be less matrix, mainly because it was very important that we all meet together, we all hash these problems out as a family, as it were. So it's been very, she only joined the company a few months before I was hired, so it's been a new journey, I think, for all of us, and most of us senior executives are pretty new to the company. but it's really worked, I think, quite well, especially us gathering as it's like 25 of us as a team in person, sharing those things, and to make sure that we're cross-populating so that the ops people aren't sitting over here and the sales people over there, because that's how it was. And now I, as marketing and comms, I infiltrate everything because I work with the salespeople, I work with the HR people, I work with ops, I work with IT. It's a unique position in the company because I'm probably one of the few, HR is probably the other one, that actually plays a role in almost everything, because everything has to be communicated either to externally or internally. And the communications piece is really, it's like, how do we talk to people? I will say they care. They actually we don't want to sound like robots. Help us not sound like a robot. So I think that's a good sign, because again, we're a human business.
So what are the metrics that you're graded on for experience? Or I guess what does the company look at? What are the different parts of the org look at?
So there's perhaps a unique, it was both challenging and a bad and a good challenge, in that I stepped into something where there was virtually no marketing strategy, no PR strategy. So I had to create it from scratch, which was a great opportunity because you get to create it from scratch. However, there were some bad habits that the organization had learned that I had to get them to unlearn. And I've had to do, I have a PR background, so I was like, all right, I can do my own PR campaign about this is how we're gonna, we're a big grown-up company. Let's act like a big grown-up company. I literally have done a little bit of PR and marketing 101 on this is how it works, here's how we go. But the metrics, so I had to set metrics to some degree because they were pretty terrible. We revamped on the employee side. As I said, I changed the marketing and comms tech stack. We changed the platform that we use for our employee internal communications to make it more dynamic, to make it more story focused, and have seen that go up 20% since we launched it in the fall. Our social media engagement numbers have bumped up 40% since we rebooted everything and made it more story centric. We are about to redesign our website. Please don't look at it right now, it's really bad. Look at it in like 6 months, when we redesign it. Because that, you all know this, that is our main front door marketing, and we've been hamstrung because it's so bad. So I can't wait for that, because that's gonna allow me to do so much more. But already, it's those numbers. It's our employee engagement, and the only thing I have right now is the technology, because marketing comms is a bit of a soft one. It's a little hard to track things. So where I can actually find hard numbers, and my CEO is a former CO, so she's a numbers lady. So where I can find the metrics is really important. And so far, we're trending in the right direction. So
have you been able to track word of mouth? I can guess the social part fills into that, but
it does. But I think that's something where I've been having, the sales team and I are working on some of that, because we have anecdotally that, but we're trying to figure out how can we actually, because it helps them too, how can we actually track this? Because our sales team is complaining that they felt like they kind of were doing 1980s sales to some degree. And so we're working together on how can we have better metrics and how can we start tracking some of this so we can have better word of mouth. Because right now it's anecdotal. We have joint ventures with pretty much every major health system in the country. So, like in Los Angeles, we have it with UCLA Health and Cedars-Sinai. In Texas, Baylor Scott White. That helps us because we have a built-in referral system, and we get it through them. So it's a work in progress on that one, but yeah.
How do you think it'll play out, connecting experience to hard numbers that, your CEO would be like, oh, okay.
We do have in the company what's called a patient experience leader, and it started in hospice. We're actually trying to copy it and do it in home health and PCS, because what they're focused on is what it sounds like, patient experience. And it also is family experience, because how do the families feel? And some of it's very soft things, where it's the nice things we do for our patients and their families. So in hospice, we have a lot of what's called legacy projects. So for instance, we had a patient in the Midwest who had been a well-known baseball coach, and his legacy project was our people in that branch made a quilt made out of his old baseball jerseys, and we give it to the family. And those are very meaningful because, again, in hospice, it's the end. But we're trying to find out ways. There's metrics on some of that stuff from it's soft data where how can we find where we've gotten feedback, because the government has you track all this. Like at the end
Right.
of, they fill out a form, and so we have that data. We have the data that shows scoring on like readmission rates, things like that. That's on the operations side. We are trying to map it to, okay, the softer piece. How can we say, okay, well, our patient score was this in that branch. What else did we do that perhaps could uplift it? So we're working on that, but we know it's important. And we know that the numbers we have that are getting government, we're in an industry where the government rates us. So that's good and bad. But how can we amplify those scores as well? And so it's something we're trying to figure out.
So is that something where AI could help, since it's all kind of unstructured? It's all unstructured in a document somewhere.
I
Right?
think it actually could. I think obviously when we're AI, because of, we just have to strip out the patient data.
Right.
But I think it absolutely could, because there, in the marketing side, we've definitely been using an AI platform to identify trends in market, so for marketing purposes and for talent acquisition purposes. So I absolutely think that it's something where we could. So we're just trying to find the right piece of technology that can do that. Because yes, right now it's humans going through it, and that is incredibly slow and not super efficient.
Right.
Yeah.
Any questions for Heather? Got.
I was just thinking about that last question about just where you're thinking about where technology does engage. I mean, I just heard the numbers, software industry 600 billion, nursing industry 600 billion. I mean, this is why, Benioff will talk about like, digital worker versus agents or versus software. Are you guys already experimenting with where the call before surgery just have to be myopathy or whatever, right? There's other areas where the experience starts to get weaved in. Have you guys started to think about that from a patient experience and making that part of how you measure success?
Do you mean, sorry, just from, do you mean from a capacity standpoint, like hiring, or from the?
From an engagement with the patient experience perspective. I just wondered if there's a conversation about where you're going to start inserting this type of technology or use the data to try to change how you engage.
Right now, our primary priority has been on increasing, so for recruiting and retention. So we put a lot of, and that's I think that's where we've been using an AI technology to help us with that. I think the next gen, what we need to do is how do we do it from the patient experience. And this is not a my company thing, as an industry, people get, perhaps because of the piece of healthcare space that we reside in, and HIPAA law, people get a little spooked about AI. So so the technology that we use in my world, that we use for both marketing and for recruiting, that I think does touch on some of that, because we can see, but it's all HIPAA compliant, so it strips out any identifying information. But it can tell us trends, and it's very good at seeing trends and you can see and the number of people receiving VA benefits in a certain zip code, because that's obviously something we would use. So we can triangulate off that. I think on the patient experience, it can tell us some of that, because obviously we can see readmission rates on if you went in for a certain surgery and you keep coming back. We have that kind of data. I think where it gets a little tricky is, someone else was saying, it's very one-to-one. It's like you might have a different experience and you would have a different experience because of a variety of things. We're human bodies. And this is perhaps a little bit of the challenge on the AI is they can't account for the fact that this person was a smoker and therefore they might end up back in the hospital quicker. This person runs 10 miles a day, so they're not. But we're trying to figure it out, because it would be great. In all honesty, the hesitation has been, we're federally regulated, HIPAA, AI is we have to do it right, because there's a lot of, I think we as a company want to do the right thing by our patients and not accidentally expose them to something. I think we all can agree, AI is amazing, I'm a big AI proponent, but there's still risk factors and we haven't perfected it yet. Someone said the teenage years. I think our fear is like accidentally, we don't want to be responsible for exposing it. So we're being slow to adopt it, but we're only because we're trying to be cautious and make sure that we don't step into it. So for recruiting, it feels safer when you start getting into patient's journey from surgery to potentially hospice. That's where I think we want to be very careful on how we do it. I don't know if that answered your question.
I was just wondering where it is.
Yeah.
Learn about where we want to apply this.
For sure, yeah.
Another question?
From what it sounds like, home health, that's nationwide. Is it a network, like kind of like a Blue Cross Blue Shields, or you guys like fully own the whole?
We own the whole thing. Yeah. So we have 30,000 employees across the country. We're one of the largest in the space. So it's all us. We don't contract out. So they are wholly owned and operated, I guess, for lack of a better word. We have joint ventures with a lot of, as I mentioned, big hospital healthcare systems. I meant to look up what the one in Seattle was this morning, and I totally blanked. But so again, LA, UCLA, we work with Memorial Hermann down in Houston. But those are our employees. So for instance, in the Dallas area or Texas, Baylor Scott White is probably the health system down there. And we have a connection with them. So when a doctor at Baylor refers his patient to get home health, they're getting an Accent Care employee. And they are dual badge on their uniform, on their scrubs. It says Baylor Accent Care. The patient doesn't know. It's irrelevant to the patient, but they're all us. And the reason is because we can control quality. The problem you get into when it's a network and independent agencies is you start to lose, you don't have as good quality control. So we've kept it to everyone's an employee. They're all full-time employees for the most part. But yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Okay. All right.
Great stuff. Thanks.